Over the past year or so, no book or series of books has appeared on my Instagram feed more than Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass series, so it was kind of inevitable I'd have to find out what all the fuss was about at some point. This novel certainly has something of a devoted fan community, and if you remember, I'd suspect the only thing that you'll agree with in this video is the following statement: your time might be better spent watching a different video. It seems to me that what Maas has written here is a perfect example of how not to write a book. In my opinion at least, you need at least some of the following to write something worth the time and trouble of reading: a convincing protagonist, a coherent or worthwhile story, and enough skill as a writer for some sort of emotional connection with your reader. So how many of those does Throne of Glass have? Well, the heroine of the piece is Selena Sardothian, for a long time the world's premier assassin, but lately confined to a labour/death camp, and all this before her 18th birthday. Now, the book says she was trained for 10 years, or since she was 10, I can't remember which. It also says that she's been the bestest and most famousest assassin in the whole kingdom for a whole number of years, so we will assume for the sake of argument that in her early teens she was murdering people for a living. You can see from the cover photo, which the descriptions in the book corroborate, that she is what old people such as myself call a slip of a girl. Actually, we don't use that phrase, only in internet videos apparently. So we can extrapolate that back a few years and assume that while she was healthy and fit, she was never bench pressing at an Olympic standard. Now, a tiny girl in her early teens can make an effective killer. A certain youthful innocence might well assuage suspicion and allow access to certain areas where others might draw attention. A lack of size could certainly be useful, taking advantage of confined areas. But a girl of that age, making a living murdering people, is going to be reliant on guile and cunning far more than she is on brute force. Yet Selena displays nothing in the way of actual intelligence. Instead, she muses constantly on which of the hulking brutes around her she's going to batter with her bare hands. Additionally, she would appear to be a petulant half-wit. She snaps and insults everyone around her, even throwing a flower pot at people she overhears disparaging her, and she tells pretty much everyone her secret identity. For some reason lately there seems to have developed this school of thought that there are two ways to make a character appear intelligent. There are not. There's only one, which is make them do clever things. But Maas lives in California, according to the sleeve notes anyway. So it is no surprise to see her subscribing to the Hollywood idea that you can make a character appear intelligent by making everyone around them complete morons. Selena's love interests discover a dead body, disemboweled and with its brain removed and missing, and dismiss it as a drunken brawl. I'd like someone to do a touch of research for me. If you can find, in the whole history of mankind, one record of a drunken brawl that resulted in somebody's brain being removed, literally, not figuratively, please post it in the comments so that we can all laugh at how wrong I am. Selena was in the city for 2 days before anyone bothered to tell her that she should use an alias, as they didn't want everyone to know who she was. 2 days, during which she met a handful of people and was openly discussed in front of others, and freely told her maid who she was. All the guards and the others who accompanied her on her journey from the camp to the city were aware of her identity. The entire castle would have known who she was before they came up with the idea of keeping it quiet. These people are that stupid. Selena despises the king, but agrees to be his appointed murderer for 4 years in order to gain her freedom. She has opportunities to escape, but decides, for spurious reasons, not to take them. She's sure that by accepting the offer, she will be asked to murder innocent people. She still takes the offer. So she's a stupid, petulant murderer without even a personal code of ethics that she isn't prepared to sell out. On to the story. Selena is taken from the camp by the prince and told that she will be his champion in a tournament of people fighting to become the king's assassin. They are taken to the castle where the tournament will be, where these mysterious brain-sucking murders come to light. Sorry, I meant drunken brawls. Selena is pretty much confined to her bedroom, released only for training for the tournament and the occasional tests in which the losing champion is released back to whatever it was they were doing before. Not for Maas, apparently the Hunger Games life or death stakes. Not for Maas, the constant battle against environment and competitors. Instead, when the murders actually start, Maas pretty much ignores them, along with all of her characters. The focus is much more on the unconvincing love triangle between Selena, Prince Dorian, and her jailer, Chaul. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, and I'm not apologising. The tournament in the Hunger Games takes place over a few days. Here it is scheduled to take many months, which is a more than effective way of removing any sense of pace or excitement from the book, even if Maas's lackluster writing didn't already do that well enough. The Hunger Games raised the standard for this sort of young adult novel. The first one, anyway, is tightly paced and makes sense within its own world. This does not. Selena is imprisoned in a room with a handy escape route in a scene directly lifted from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. She discovers Cain, her main rival in the tournament, is using dark magic to suck the strength from the other challengers. She tells nobody. She discovers strange hieroglyphics, weird marks she calls them. She tells nobody. Her reasons for keeping these secrets are given, they're just not good ones. She finds a weapon in the secret passage and leaves it behind. Later, she says returning to the passage is not an option, despite the fact at the time she is sat on her bed, unarmed, undressed, and genuinely expecting terrifying monsters to come for her. Of course, she's told nobody about those either. Selena wins the tournament, of course, because everything here is relentlessly predictable. For example, Maas tries to suggest that Selena's friend Nehemiah might be doing something bad. It's obvious that she's not, because Maas has already painted the king as a despot, and Nehemiah is the embodiment of his opposition as well as, dare I say it, representing an ethnic minority. She is therefore depicted as perfect, and Selena's guilt over even considering that she might have done something bad rumbles on over so many pages it becomes, in a phrase I've copied from kids on the internet, cringe. That was cringe too. The story isn't as worthless as the characters that fill it, but it's ridiculously bloated, full of pointless drivel, and fails to develop any aspect that might actually have been interesting. Indeed, when there is an aspect that might become more than dull, it still falls flatter than a pancake dropped off a very tall building. And that is because Maas is incapable of writing something, anything, that might actually create some kind of emotion. For example, these are the entire sentences that she devotes to describing the secret passage that Selena discovers. Now, compare that to a very similar scene from Stephen Erickson's Gardens of the Moon, an actual good fantasy novel. Is it perfect? No. But like Throne of Glass is Maas's first novel, that was Erickson's, and he sets the scene well enough and gives a sense of what the character Lorne is experiencing. Maas's prose is both lazy and flat, generating all the emotional connection of a shopping list. She also has a dreadful habit of repeating things 3 times. You can see from the 3 examples here that she really doesn't know what she's doing with it. The pain repetition, maybe it builds a sense of being overwhelmed, but it doesn't do it well. But waiting, what does that achieve? She might have been trying to build a sense of threat, but again, it doesn't really work. Doors? I just give up. If we look at this passage from page 311 of this edition, you can see that it's not actually terrible. There's even an attempt here to actually write something with some impact and atmosphere, rather than just a list of things that happened. But wouldn't this bit be better at the start? Setting the scene at the beginning? Then you rather expose just how drab the rest of the paragraph is if you take it away. The scene in which Selena is crippled by menstrual cramps over 5 or 6 pages is rather bizarre. I wasn't going to talk about this, as I really didn't want to be accused of having a problem with periods, and that in some way would make my review biased against the book, but this scene serves absolutely no purpose. Initially, while doubled up in pain, Selena's concern is that the final duel is 4 weeks on, so I was thinking, yes, fighting while on a period, probably that would be a concern. But after this scene, the issue is never brought up again in any way, never mentioned at all. It really is completely irrelevant. The only thing I can think of is that Maas wanted another reason to bring Selena and Dorian together again for some lame banter, and that this was the best she could come up with. Avoid this like the plague, and if you see your daughter reading this and she's interested in fantasy, buy her a copy of Daughter of the Empire by Wirtz and Feist. It has a female protagonist who learns to be a leader, solves her problems with rational thought, and yes, she's as hard as nails too. Daughter of the Empire is far, far better than this garbage, which I recommend to absolutely nobody unless their IQ and age are lower than 12.